Are we ready? Good afternoon. Calling this meeting of taxes to order for March 16th, 2023. There is a quorum present. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Representative Norris.
Chair Gomez, I move the minutes from the March 14th meeting of the Tax Committee.
Vice Chair Norris has moved the minutes from March 14th. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Minutes are adopted. First up on the agenda, thank you, Representative Anderson, for bringing treats as promised. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Chair Vang is here with House File 2277. Welcome to the committee, Chair Vang. Thank you for being with us today. We know you're running around, so we'll try to get you out of here in shortly. So I'm going to move that House File 2277 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Would you like me to move the A1 authors amendment also?
Yes, please, Madam Chair.
Excellent. So I'm going to move the A1 amendment. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. A1 is adopted, and the bill is in the form the author would like. Please present your bill, Chair Vang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I present for your consideration House File 2277, which would extend and expand Minnesota's beginning farmer tax credit and make it better to support the next generation of farmers. As we all know, farming is capital intensive. Land in particular is hugely expensive, and that creates real challenges for young people and others who want to get started in farming. I've heard about this throughout my time in the legislature, and it's been a big part of my work in the Ag Committee. Young people are excited about farming, but they could also use a hand up. In 2017, Minnesota was among the first in the nation to pass a tax credit to help beginning farmers get onto the land. The law provides farmers an incentive to rent or sell ag assets to beginning farmers, helping them buy land, broker relationships, and get established in their operations. To date, well over 1,000 new farmers have been helped by this program, and it continues to be more well known and popular across the state. Now to the changes in my bill. First, my bill will increase the credit for sale of ag assets from 5% to 8% and up to $50,000. At present, a smaller percentage of farmers use this credit for sale of ag assets. Much like homeownership, owning ag land is how farmers build generational wealth, and we want to make sure new farmers are afforded the same opportunity. Second, for Black, Indigenous, and farmers of color, my bill will increase the credit of sale of ag assets to 12%, giving them an extra leg up. I've heard from many emerging farmers that they often aren't coming to a family operation, and so this is an additional credit to give them a let up in negotiating purchases and brokering relationships with existing operators. And third, my bill will expand this credit to family members for the sale of ag land, allowing children and grandchildren to use this credit to assist with generational farm transition. As any farmer would tell you, generational transition is complex and costly. Providing this incentive will help more young farmers get started in agriculture, which is an unqualified win for the state. And fourth and finally, my bill will eliminate the sunset on this program. Without our action, the credit is set to expire in December of this year. And that is, and now with all these changes are made within the current funding cap, $6 million per year, with the remainder carrying forward. And with that, I will yield my time to my testifiers.
Thank you so much, Chair Vang. Thank you for all of your work on this issue and making farming opportunities accessible to the next generation and to new communities who are interested. We appreciate it so much. Molly Byron is here, I believe, to testify. Welcome to the committee. Please just say your name for the record and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Gomez and members of the committee, and thank you to Representative Vang for her leadership on this proposal. For the record, my name is Molly Byron, and it is my dream to transition my family farm located in Waseca, Minnesota, to the next generation. On behalf of myself and Minnesota Farmers Union, I'm here to testify in strong support to expand and improve access to the beginning farmer tax credit, allowing family members to participate and utilize the credit. I also support increasing the credit for emerging farmers who often aren't coming into a family operation. This will give them an added leg up and help get more new farmers on the land. I come from a multi-generational farm family where I'm part of the 6th generation to grow up on my farm. However, I didn't always know that I wanted to transition my family farm. When the pandemic hit in 2020, I found myself back on the farm after living out of state for over 10 years. I ended up reconnecting with my agricultural roots and enrolled in farm business management at South Central College to learn how to manage my family farm while also utilizing the Farm Business Management Scholarship for beginning farmers. I am now in my third year of the program and a member of the South Central College's Farm Business Management Advisory Board. And through this experience, I've had the opportunity to personally hear from the farm business management instructors across the state about how much the beginning farm tax credit has changed the playing field for new and young farmers they work with. The beginning farm tax credit has become so critical to farm. Today, it is nearly impossible to farm without some kind of assistance. Young people just can't compete, and this bleeds into our rural communities, affecting other businesses and our schools. And there are so many young farmers in Minnesota who wish to transition their generational family farm, but right now do not have the same opportunity for assistance. In most cases, we cannot afford to transition our farms by ourselves. Expanding the beginning farm tax credit could potentially alleviate farmland from going on the market for sky-high prices because more would consider and actually could take over a family farm. Just last month, I attended a 2-day multi-generational farm transition retreat at South Central College with my family. And at this retreat, the room was completely filled with other farm families from across Minnesota. The facilitators shared that this was the largest group of families they have ever had in over 10 years they have been putting on this retreat, and even had to stop advertising the retreat because they ran out of space. So I am not alone, and there are so many farm families just like my own. Right now, I honestly don't know if I'll be able to financially transition my family farm, and that reality is extremely overwhelming. But this is the reality for most farm families in Minnesota who have hopes of finding a way to continue their farm beyond the current generation. Thank you for the opportunity to share my support and that of Minnesota Farmers Union, and for your support of beginning farmers. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Is there anyone else who wishes to testify on House File 2277? Not seeing any. We'll move to member discussion. Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the author for bringing forward this bill. As a relatively young farmer myself, I can adhere to and attest to the fact that this is actually a fairly difficult challenge financially in order to start up and continue on what even, to start up from the ground level or to continue on what your ancestors have helped you to build. It's a difficult process, and so I thank the author of the bill for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Representative Olson. Is there any further discussion to the bill? All right, seeing none, I'm going to renew my motion that House File 22, oh, sorry. Do you have any closing comments for us, Chair Vang? I always forget this part.
No, thank you so much, Madam Chair and committee, for your support. I appreciate the opportunity to testify on this bill.
Excellent. So with that, I'm going to renew my motion that House File 2277 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over. Best of luck with your many bill presentations that you have during the next couple hours. Thanks for being here. Chair Lislegard, welcome to the committee. So, next on the agenda is House File 2059. Chair Lislegard, would you like to move your bill?
So moved, Mrs. Chair.
Excellent. So Chair Lislegard's moving that House File 2059 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Please present your bill, Chair Lislegard.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and I do know that we have a full agenda, so out of respect for you, this will be a short series, not a long series.
All right.
That was a little joke if you didn't get it.
Was that an industry joke that I didn't pick up on?
Kind of.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I'll work on that. I'll work on that delivery.
Limited mini-series here. Okay.
You got that right. So I'm happy to bring forward House File 2059, which would expand Minnesota film and TV tax credit program. And thank you again, Madam Chair, for giving me this time. It means a lot to me. 2 years ago, we passed into law Minnesota's first film and TV tax credit with the goal of creating a powerful economic development tool in our state, and it has not disappointed. Tax credit programs like this have an impressive track record in other states and around the world, and now we in Minnesota have seen the benefits as well. The current law has a program at $5 million with a sunset in place. My bill would extend the program to $25 million and would eliminate the sunset. It also makes some technical changes that will improve how the program runs. Now I'll just tell you a little bit about my story because I've said it in the other one. Okay. And so in 2000, everybody knows my history in mining. And in 2000 or 2001, when I lost my job, I went back to the local community college, and I had to take an elective. And one of those electives was a theater class. And my professor knew that Warner Brothers was coming up to do a private screening, and he encouraged me to do it. And I didn't want to, but he said he would go with me. He did, and I went there, and I had to play an angry union guy.
Chair Lislegard, we all know that was a true acting challenge for you.
Yeah. And so then I was asked to, say a few lines, and they really brought that out, and they said, picture this individual, you just lost your job, picture this individual was the cause of that, right? So then they do a little thing. And then so 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from Mally Finn out of LA. And really it is Nikki Caro, the director, who has this incredible talent and vision to bring in real people into her films to give it that authentic. And when Mally Finn offered me the part, I said no. And she was shocked that I said no, that I would be turning down to be cast in a small role. And I didn't want to do it because of it. I felt that it depicted the Iron Range in a very negative way. Little did I know, really understand the real meaning behind the film, and it was the first class action sexual harassment lawsuit. The courage of Lois Jensen, played by Charlize Theron, and her colleagues changed this country by them standing up. And so I did it. And then it was a wonderful experience. I watched what that industry did for our community, what they brought in labor, and what they spent in our communities at a time when we needed it most. And I remember it was like 2 weeks shooting the Union Hall scene, and all of a sudden, after 12-hour days, and they packed up and they were going to leave, and I said, "Wow, you're leaving." And I was shocked because the film wasn't done. They left because of an incentive program offered by New Mexico. And 2 weeks later, I got offered a part to fly down to Santa Fe, New Mexico and shoot the bar scene. And it was, I just couldn't believe it. The same thing. They just packed up all these workers, right? But didn't pack up our workers. They packed up that smaller group, right? And they went to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then they used all of their workers. And I watched them stimulate that economy. And when I was asked to carry this 2 years ago, or 4 years ago, I don't remember, it resonated with me. And I saw what this industry can become. This industry is exploding across the world, frankly. There's three real main hubs in the country, right? You have New York, you have LA, and you have Georgia. But you have all these other states that are starting to do what we're doing. And what we want to do is build a foundation to get them to come. There's content all over there, and there's a lot of filmmakers that can't tap into those three main hubs. So we have opportunity to bring them here and build this foundation to create the very jobs. This is a but-for. This is $25 million, and it's going to create $250 million of projects being spent to get the $25 million in credit. So we ain't giving money to Hollywood. We're giving money to the industry that is going to create jobs, stimulate our economy, our mom and pop shops, and help us diversify our economy by bringing this here. This is the real deal. And as you know, there's a large group to my left, which I won't look. This is them, and they came because this is their work. It's like the steel workers. It's like us fighting for our job, our opportunity. Well, this is theirs. And so I couldn't be more happy to be here. This is the bill. I do have testifiers that can expand on it, but this is our moment. And I thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving us the time.
Thank you, Chair Lislegard, and thank you so much to everybody who made the trip to be here. We love to have a full house in Tax Committee. We thought you guys were here for the public finance bill, but turns out, all right. So to Chair Lislegard's testifiers, first up, Melody Bahan. Welcome to the committee.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you. I'm Melody Bahan. I'm the Executive Director of Minnesota Film and TV. Thank you for allowing me to testify in support of House File 2059. And thank you, Representative Lislegard. We are grateful to the legislature for passing our first production tax credit in 2021, and we are proud of the 10 projects that have chosen Minnesota because of the program and the more than $20 million in new spending it is bringing to the state with these projects. But the 2021 bill was a small pilot, and we need to take the next step to fulfill the promise of more spending and high-paying jobs for Minnesotans. Since our tax credit program began, other states, recognizing the economic benefits of film and TV production, have continued to strengthen their tax credits, making our program one of the smallest in the country. We are looking at a landscape where most other programs have annual caps ranging from 30 to 400 million, or in the case of 14 states, no cap at all. We have also struggled with the sunset on the program. Films and episodic programming can sometimes take years to develop, and having a 4-year sunset has cut us out of many discussions about films in development, and certainly out of any discussion of an ongoing series. Again, if you look at what Minnesota is competing with, most of the states with strong industries doing TV and streaming series have either extended or in many cases eliminated their sunsets altogether. Other states have recognized the value of these credits, and this bill will help Minnesota do more of what we're already doing really well. Decision makers in the industry have shown great interest in investing in our state, and there is more to come if we can expand and improve our program. I'd like to bring your attention to some letters in your packet that illustrate several things. Producer Mandy June Turpin writes about choosing Minnesota as a location for her film Mary Kiss Cam and her plans to bring at least 2 more projects here in the coming year. Filmmaker Matt Burns' letter is just one example of the many Minnesotans we've lost to other states because they couldn't find work here, who now want to bring their work home because of the incentive. You'll also see letters illustrating the breadth of support for this bill geographically and outlining its economic benefits, from Sherry Marshak at the Upper Midwest Film Office, from the Duluth Chamber of Commerce, from Chisholm Inn General Manager Michelle Scott, and Rochester filmmaker Sarah Hamilton. An increase to $25 million and the elimination of the sunset in Minnesota would allow us to turn the interest generated by the passage of the tax credit 2 years ago into commitments from studios to bring their business here and provide the high-paying union jobs that come with it. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Bahan. Next up is Hannah Alstead. Welcome to the committee. Please just introduce yourself as you begin your testimony.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Hannah Alstead. I'm the political director of the Teamsters Joint Council 32, representing 75,000 union members in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of House File 2059. In 2019, film and TV projects that went through the state's rebate program made for a total spend of $7.6 million. In 2022, that number was $20.8 million. That was due in part to the creation of this state tax credit. And while this was great progress, we're currently losing larger productions, episodic projects, and stable Teamster jobs to other states that offer more competitive programs, and the longer Minnesota remains out of the running, the further we move down the list. We can handle more, and we want more. The Teamsters Motion Picture Division consists of 12,000 members at 74 local unions across the country. These members work as drivers, location professionals, casting directors and associates, animal trainers, handlers, and wranglers, dispatchers, DOT admins, mechanics, chef drivers, chef assistants, and more that support the production of feature films and television. If this bill becomes law, hardworking Minnesotans, including many Teamsters that I represent, will have the opportunity to secure high-paying jobs, jobs that will allow them to put a roof over their family's head, food on the table, and even put some away for a rainy day. I had the chance to go out to Los Angeles in 2019 with Minnesota Film and TV. We met with executives from organizations like Entertainment Partners and the Television Academy, along with so many others, where labor was not just a consideration in those conversations, it was the center of those conversations. From the cast to the crews, to the carpenters and electricians, to the drivers. The people working on these projects are union trained and union represented. What I took away from all of this was that this industry doesn't forget about labor. This industry is labor. IATSE, SAG-AFTRA, the Teamsters. This is an industry that saved people during the pandemic. Creators and the people bringing those creations to life kept the world moving even when it stopped. I speak on behalf of all of my union siblings in the film and TV industry when I say we're ready to get to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next up is Brian Simpson. Welcome to the committee. Please just introduce yourself as you're getting started.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Brian Simpson. I'm a member of IATSE Local 490. Local 490 is a labor union that represents film and TV crew in the state of Minnesota. Our members work in almost every aspect of film and TV production. Here in this room, you see a lot of people here. We have right now office staff, prop masters, wardrobe stylists, location managers, script supervisors, grips, gaffers, electricians, painters, set carpenters, set decorators, makeup artists, sound mixers, craft services, set medics, and maybe even special effects. These are all real Minnesotans, and they're all working real middle-class jobs. While all of our members are skilled technicians in their crafts, none of these jobs require college degrees. Film and TV production is modern-day manufacturing that is entirely dependent on human labor. These jobs are not robots. They can never be automated. They are all real people working in a skilled profession. House File 2059, the film production tax credit, is a job creator that needs to be expanded. If House File 2059 were to pass as written, our current labor force would not be enough to satisfy the increase in demand for new jobs. This would allow Local 490 and the Minnesota film industry to aggressively expand with new job creation and new jobs training programs. Some of that job growth will be handled with on-the-job training. Some of that will be longer-term programs. Local 490 has already begun working on this issue by partnering with Inspire MSP to create a path for underprivileged youth in the Twin Cities to find career opportunities in film and TV production after they graduate high school. Now, why in the middle of a national labor shortage would one industry think that they can aggressively expand in job creation? Because it's fun. This is the type of industry that people leave Minnesota to find in other states. This is a creative way for us to keep creative careers in Minnesota. The film and TV jobs that will be created by House File 2059 will be union jobs. Film crew will receive health and retirement benefits, they will be protected by collective bargaining agreements, and they will be paid middle-class wages. The film and production tax credit has had a great start. We have a lot of room to grow, and with your help and support of House File 2059 as it is written, we can make that happen here in Minnesota. Members of the committee, thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. So we're going to move to member discussion. First up, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Lislegard, for bringing this bill, and thanks to everyone who came here in support of it. I supported this bill when it was created. I'm glad to see the numbers of how, it's been used and the projects that have been done. That's fantastic. But I just have a small concern about why 25 million. We didn't reach the cap of what was created last time, and I understand the reasons for the sunset, and that may have impacted it. But the committee has a certain target, and I I personally think the R&D tax credit is also really important to driving innovation in this committee. And so I just wondered if, if you could talk more about why you went to 25 when we haven't even reached what the original credit was for.
Chair Lislegard.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and Representative. I will defer to the expert who does it, but what I will say is that it's an opportunity to grow. And I would think that once you eliminate the sunset, it's a capital investment rate of return in this business. And for us to get private equity to be spent in the state of Minnesota, you have to go without a sunset. 4 years is just, they're not going to get a rate of return on their money. So therefore, how do you build the foundation to be sustainable moving forward? So to your direct question, I will let Melody answer that.
Ms. Bahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative. There are a number of reasons why the initial tax credit has not been completely utilized, the sunset being one of them. Other issues include the fact that the bill went into law in July of 2021, and because it was a new program, it had to be built from the ground up. So it was September before DEED was prepared to offer applications to the public. Then one of the other issues that we found that this bill would address as just a technical language change is that the bill as currently written requires that the minimum qualified expenditure happen within the calendar year. Well, production doesn't happen in a calendar year, particularly in Minnesota. If a project wants to come and shoot in the winter with snow, they may start in December and finish in February. They're not going to spend, this bill will address that issue. So we generally don't have applications after October until the following year. Those are just some of the issues.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. And I think those changes are well advised, and I would support that. I just, would caution the committee to think about all the priorities that we are considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Joy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Lislegard. I think this is a good bill to promote businesses in Minnesota. I think as we look at this and we can draw more people into Minnesota to do this, it's going to be also increased for business for us. But I think we also need to consider legislation so we keep businesses in Minnesota to continue to grow on the border cities and keep them in this side, not Wisconsin, not North Dakota. So I think this is good, but I think we need to, in general, think about that all around as we bring more industry here. Thank you.
Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be quick. I just kind of wanted to touch on something that wasn't quite brought out in the testimony. I appreciate this bill because I watched this work in our city in March, between February and March of 2010, when Thin Ice came and filmed here. And not only did they film in our town a little bit and use folks for extras, but there was an empty warehouse that the owner was having trouble filling, that they set up their production studio in there. And then there was over 50 to 60 people there that when they were taking their break for lunch, visited all our local restaurants, and our restaurants saw a spike in income, and it just, the ripple effect was huge. So I just truly do appreciate you bringing this forward. And also, the increase, I think, not only the startup, and that's why you might not have hit your cap, but maybe you can answer me this real quick. Is part of that, too, that some of the bigger productions would need a little bit more money, so the incentive isn't quite there for them to come in? Is that accurate?
Chair Lislegard, I see Ms. Bahan nodding. We'll go to her. Ms. Bahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative. Yes, that is exactly the case. The $5 million tax credit that we currently have has attracted projects that, by Hollywood standards, are very small budgets. And so what we want to do is expand the tax credit so that we can draw those bigger budget projects that are going to pay a lot of union wages to multiple people.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Representative Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And man, Representative Lislegard, if this doesn't make it in the bill, I don't know what, because you're not seeing any form of dissension whatsoever, because I believe that this is absolutely spot on. It is a straight up bullseye, especially when you're reading some of the letters of support, like AFL-CIO, in their letter of support, they say, when even modest tax incentives are available, producers are choosing Minnesota to house their productions. And I think this is a theme that we really should be looking to span across this entire state. When even modest tax incentives are available, producers are choosing Minnesota. That is the theme. That is the bullseye. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just this could be potentially to staff or to Representative Lislegard, but just looking at the bill. So, just the kind of the analysis that you gave and your kind of your subject matter when you spoke about your own experience and how production crews would sometimes hop states. Is there any protection to Minnesota taxpayers to say, hey, the production we're going to produce here for a month? And some movies do that, like they go here, they go there. Like we're not giving them a full tax break on the full, but just what they actually spent in the state while they were here, or how does that process work from a
Chair Lislegard.
Madam Chair, I think House Research, nonpartisan, could go through that, or Melody.
All right, Mr. Klayman?
Madam Chair and members, so the credit is for eligible production costs, and those would require to be paid in Minnesota. So the credit would only be available to a film production or a production crew that actually makes their expenses in Minnesota. So if they went to another state, any expenses in that state wouldn't qualify for the credit.
Representative Swedzinski? Good? All right. Is there any further, Representative Olson L.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to say, I know we have a number of folks from Duluth here, that this is such a big deal for our community and for the whole state. But I know in particular after Mary Kiss Cam came out this year, there was that surge of pride in seeing our local community showcased in that way. And so many people on screen that we knew, that were our neighbors, our friends, local venues that we go to all the time. And to just see that real local flair, I just wanted to highlight that I think the testifiers did a great job at, but you could really see that really happen on that screen, and that was a real moment of pride. So thank you, Representative Lislegard.
Any further member discussion? Seeing none, Chair Lislegard, closing comments.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for the great conversation and the support. I do believe that this is a wonderful opportunity for the state of Minnesota to grow an industry that is looking for somewhere to go. So I truly appreciate your support.
Absolutely. So Chair Lislegard is going to renew his motion that House File 2059 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over. Thanks for being here, everyone. We appreciate it. All right. Chair Lislegard is not going anywhere. Next up is House File 2410. So Chair Lislegard, would you like to move that your bill be laid over?
So moved.
All right. Excellent. So Chair Lislegard moves that House File 2410 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Please describe your bill.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, fans, for signing autographs. Anyway, sorry about that. I had to take that moment.
Oh, you're good.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the opportunity to present House File 2410 this afternoon. House File 2410 simply extends the existing sales tax exemption for snowmobile trail groomers to all the materials and supplies necessary for the development and maintenance of snowmobile trails by nonprofit snowmobile clubs. Also, the bill clarifies that the current exemption for groomers includes necessary parts and repairs. We have 22,000 miles of snowmobile trails in Minnesota. 20,000 of those grant and aid trails, which are maintained by local snowmobile clubs, and these are volunteer. This is with local government and the DNR. So this is just something that I think is important for the people that spend their time and really they put their heart and soul in it. They're passionate about it, volunteerism, and it creates opportunity to support business across the state. these trails. I mean, when you see 30, 40, 50 sleds at a bar or a restaurant, you know, it's really, really good. But they need help, and this is a modest request, and I do have a testifier here.
Excellent. Sorry. If somebody's like listening to audio not on headphones, could you please not do that? Thank you. Apologies. I got a little distracted there. Doug Franzen, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself as you go ahead with your testimony.
Madam Chair, members, thank you. My name is Doug Franzen, and I'm here representing the Minnesota United Snowmobilers Association. MINUSA, as we call it, is a users, not manufacturers, not a commercial, but the recreationalist association throughout the state of Minnesota to promote and protect snowmobiling. We have over 10,000 families. We do sell individual memberships, but our basic membership unit is the family unit. And there is nothing in our bylaws that excludes legislators from being members. I will be around after the hearing if anyone's interested. Seriously, snowmobiling is obviously huge in Minnesota. We're the home of snowmobiling. Hundreds of millions of dollars annually in economic impact are attributable to snowmobiling. We're the home of both Arctic Cat and Polaris. We have a winter resort season because of snowmobiling. And I just want to lay down the importance of this sport to our state and its economy. The second piece, though, takes to understand how this system works a little bit. Snowmobilers like to believe we pay our own way. We fund this entire 22,000 or 21,000+ miles of snowmobiles through a dedicated fund administered through the DNR. That fund, the source of the income for the fund is our registration fees, which we have come to the legislature numerous times to increase to ensure the adequacy of the fund, and a small portion of the unrefunded gas tax attributable to snowmobile use. The state, in turn, contracts with a county or any local unit of government, and which in turn contracts with the local snowmobile club. As Representative Lislegard said, these are volunteer groups. We develop, we maintain. Our finances are very tight. We do get, in addition to the grants, sometimes we have to have hot dog sales or whatever it may be to make ends meet. Costs are crushing us right now, particularly in the fuel area. I don't think our story is unique in that respect. Having said that, every trail we have is put in and maintained by volunteers over private land in which the landowner charges nothing. The landowner, out of being a good citizen, part of their community, says, yes, run a snowmobile trail here. Come about April 1st, the trail disappears and the land reverts to its normal use. Again, in the fall, the process goes on and on again. The groomers, the machines to make the snowmobile experience possible, there's not a sales tax. There's an exemption on this. What we are talking about in this bill is very simply extending that exemption to the lumber someone may go to Menards to rebuild a bridge over a creek that needs a redecking, or a bunch of rebar to put in stop signs and safety signs throughout. If you've driven around or been in a lot of the parks in Minnesota, you see in the ditches, in the woods, there's a lot of little yellow signs with arrows on them. Those are essential, both for safety, but also for a city boy like me to get out of the woods. Otherwise, I would be there forever. Buying that type of property and the materials, the repairs for the groomer if a track breaks or something like that. This would permit these volunteers to get the necessary materials and supplies to make sure the trail, which again is open to the general public at any time while the trail's there, of course, not in the summertime, and to provide that opportunity without having to worry about the additional sales tax. It's a huge deal for the snowmobile clubs, and relatively speaking, I'm not diminishing the cost of this, but in the context of the state budget, the tax expenditure we're talking about here is, the fiscal note, I believe this year, Madam Chair, is $50,000 a year. And again, for $50,000 a year to ensure the fiscal integrity of this important infrastructure that so many jobs, so many resorts depend on for survival, seems like a great, great deal. So with that, I will conclude my testimony. Stand for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Moving to member discussion, Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a question, just kind of as a process, you mentioned that we're talking about the 2x4s, the nails, the signs, and oftentimes that work is done through the summer. I'm wondering, just looking at the bill, if you're potentially could get yourself into trouble or have the potential not to have it expansive enough, because most of that projects happen during the summertime, that the tools that you would use or the different types of machinery, so like if the club would own a four-wheeler to go across the fields, like those things would be associated with the grooming and the maintenance that potentially, as I'm reading this bill, like the tool would be the four-wheeler or the side-by-side, but potentially you'd have to pay sales tax on that, even though it's not, because it's not directly a grooming machine. And have you guys thought of that? Is that a possibility that just potentially add a little bit more to it so that you could cover both the summer use and winter use of those trails?
Chair Lislegard, should we go to Mr. Franzen? Mr. Franzen.
Madam Chair, Representative, the way we, at least, have always interpreted development and maintenance of a trail is a 12-month calendar year that would include all of the work, the signage, the brushing, the improvements, the repairs throughout the year. Because our responsibility under landowner permission is we return the land to its natural state, and then hopefully, if the landowner extends another year, and they almost always do, Madam Chair, the same process will start again, late summer, early fall. And I don't think this is limited. Used and consumed in equipment in construction, reconstruction, maintenance, or improvement of a state or grant and aid trail. By the way, Madam Chair, grant and aid clubs, our snowmobile clubs, also under contract with the DNR, maintained a number of the state trails and segments of those trails because we can do it incredibly efficiently. So we have to have state in there as well. So I believe in the world of creation, maintenance, development, we have the go-ahead to get the tools that we need to get.
Representative Swedzinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But, assuming, just reading the bill, though, in Section 1, it says including grooming machines, attachments, or associated to and repair parts. I'm just wondering, like, if you want, have you had clubs that have bought side-by-sides or four-wheelers that have incurred a sales tax in the purchase of those that are not related to the exact grooming? That potentially, I'm just trying to help you here if I can, but, yeah.
Mr. Franzen.
Madam Chair, I'm between a rock and a hard place because I love committee help, but I don't want to know what impact that might have on the fiscal note. Sure. And one of my primary goals here is to be as cheap as we can be.
Sounds good.
And we appreciate that, Mr. Franzen, as cheapskates ourselves here in Tax Committee. And this bill will be laid over, and so if there's sort of some additional tweaks that need to happen, then we can do that as we move forward. Is there any further discussion? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another great bill, Representative Lislegard. I have learned a lot by getting to know the Northwest Trails Association in my district, and it is incredibly impressive the amount of work these volunteers put in. Hours, overnights, every weekend, getting the trails ready for the public to enjoy, and most members of the public who use the trails have no idea what goes into this. So I just want to thank you for this bill, and I think it's money well spent for our state.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair Lislegard, any closing thoughts for us?
This is a great bill, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sounds good. With that, Chair Lislegard is going to renew his motion that House File 2410 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over. Next up, Vice Chair Norris is going to take over. Let me see.
All right. All set, Chair Gomez?
I am indeed Chair
All right.
Norris.
Fantastic. So Chair Gomez moves that House File 2757 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Chair Gomez, would you like us to go to Mr. Clayman to kind of do a walkthrough of this bill? Or?
Yes, please, Chair Norris. I'm a little bummed our whole audience left before the main event here, but if Mr. Clayman could walk us through, that would be great.
Fantastic. Mr. Clayman.
Mr. Chair and members, I'll just briefly go through section by section. House File 2757, this is the 2023 Public Finance Bill. Section 1, some portions are substantially similar to the Public Finance Bill that was heard in this committee last year. It was not enacted. Section 1 allows local governments to invest public funds in time deposits, basically certificates of deposits that are insured by the National Association of Credit Unions. They can do that under current law by investing in time deposits insured by the FDIC or bankers' acceptances of United States banks. Section 2 does a couple things. The first thing it does, it allows certain, bonds essentially from a school district, extends the period in which they're payable from 10 years to 20 years. There are a few provisions in this bill that do the same. Section 3, again, extends that 10-year period to 20-year period for the payability of certificates of indebtedness for a town. The section also includes provisions relating to projects that eliminate R22, which is a refrigerant that's used in certain ice making facilities. There are a number of provisions in this bill that include this, and this would just allow certificates of indebtedness to be issued for projects that eliminate that R22. Again, Section 4, very similar to Section 3. That just would apply to counties. Section 5, again, similar to Section 3 and 4, but would apply to Hennepin County. And then Section 6 would do the same, but that would apply to a home rule or charter city. And then Section 7, again, that's another, that would be, again, the same provision for statutory cities. So there's two different types of cities in the state. Section 8 clarifies that existing levy certification requirements must be applied for a statute that relates to levy certifications for housing redevelopment authorities. There may need to be a technical correction in that particular section so that applies to housing redevelopment authorities. Currently, the bill language states it applies to port authorities. Again, Section 9, 10, and 11 are very similar to Section 8. I'll just briefly kind of summarize all of them. Those just also clarify that those levy certification requirements apply to port authorities, and then economic development authorities. Section 12 and 13 and 14 all relate to requirements for tax-exempt bonds. Section 12, I think the best way to explain it, it's a conformity provision in some ways. It essentially conforms the state to the federal rules on tax-exempt bonds. And so this would just remove a requirement that the public facilities that are funded by tax-exempt bonds have to be publicly owned or have to be a district heating and cooling facility. And then that would allow any of the federal tax-exempt bonds rules to apply. And was a recent federal act that allowed certain facilities to qualify, and those aren't currently listed in the state statute. Section 13 just strikes some limits for projects that can be funded for public facility bonds. Those are also a type of tax-exempt bonds. And again, that just allows the federal rules to govern what public facility bonds can be issued for. And then Section 14, that's the last section, that just removes a requirement that potentially may have created some ambiguity about whether, an exception to the 30-year term limit for tax-exempt bonds that finance certain water and treatment facilities, whether that's only allowed for water projects that are financed through the United States Department of Agriculture. So, Mr. Chair and members, that's concludes the walkthrough of House File 2757.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that scintillating overview, Mr. Clayman. I see Mr. Bagnoli at the testifier table. Mr. Bagnoli, anything further you'd like to add?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Joe Bagnoli with Winthrop and Weinstein Law Firm. I represent the Minnesota Institute of Public Finance, and we've developed this bill. Just for the new members here, every year this group of folks that are lawyers, financial advisors to cities and municipalities, and bankers that do public financing get together, and essentially this is sort of the same thing as the Department of Revenue's technical bill. They get together and look for places to simplify, clarify, sync up better with the changes in federal law. Their stated goal is to not to be controversial, to do anything controversial, and so this is what that is every year. Usually it provides the basis of the public finance article in the tax bill. From time to time there are things that are added to it, but it's usually the starting point of the public finance bill. The person who normally would be sitting here is sick today, who's a bond lawyer or a public finance attorney. So my ability to answer detailed questions might be somewhat limited, but I think Mr. Clayman did a scintillating job, as you said, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bagnoli. Members, any discussion or questions?
Mr. Chair, I should say one thing that is important. Because there are some folks in the audience that have a point of view. Section 1 on this has to do, there is some concern about Section 1 that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. The Independent Bankers Association and the Minnesota Bankers Association have some concerns about that, and my goal is to either resolve the concerns or eliminate the provision. So I just wanted to make sure I said that so the blow dart didn't hit me from the crowd here.
Appreciate the clarification. Any questions or discussion from the members? All right, seeing none, anything further, Chair Gomez?
I think I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, well, with that, Chair Gomez renews her motion that House File 2757 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. House File 2757 is laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill.
All right, next up is House File 1746. Welcome back to your committee, Rep. Agbaje. Would you like to move your bill?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right, so Representative Agbaje has moved that House File 1746 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Please tell us about your bill.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So House File 1746 seeks to return money back to taxpayers, which I'm sure is something we can all support. So many of you will remember the polar vortex storm in February 2021 that led to extremely low temperatures across the country for about 4 days. The other consequence of that storm is that natural gas prices spiked during that time, resulting in gas costs far above what people would normally pay in that period. So to protect residents from exorbitantly high heating bills, the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission directed recovery of these costs over 63 months. In Minnesota, when a resident's primary source of heat is natural gas, they do not pay sales tax on that gas during the winter months, which are from November to April. And so by spreading out the polar vortex costs, customers ended up paying sales tax on costs that they would not have been taxed because they occurred during the winter. So in other ways, had those costs been paid in full when they actually occurred, customers would not have paid a sales tax on that amount. And so if we don't address it, customers will continue paying an extra tax on that for the next 5 years. So this bill fixes that problem by refunding that sales tax that's already been paid back to customers for those few days in February and ensuring that they will not pay tax on those February 2021 costs into the future. There are letters of support in your packets that show that both the Public Utilities Commission and the Citizens Utility Board are in support of this bill. And with that, I'll turn to my testifiers, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and go ahead with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair Gomez and members of the Tax Committee. My name is Jamie Fitzke, and I'm Director of Government Affairs at CenterPoint Energy. CenterPoint Energy is one of 4 utilities in Minnesota that was impacted by the gas spike in February of 2021, though this was felt nationally. So this increase in natural gas prices resulted in extraordinary costs in a 5-day period for CenterPoint Energy and its customers. As our author noted quite eloquently, that in normal course during the winter months, these costs would have been sales tax exempt for our residential customers. But due to the collection of these costs over a 63-month period, our customers now are have been subjected and currently are still paying taxes on that. CenterPoint Energy supports House File 1746 as it offers relief to our customers for costs that typically would not have been subject to a sales tax. We thank Representative Agbaje for authoring this bill, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there other people who wish to testify on this bill? Hi, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself as you're beginning your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair Gomez and members of the committee. My name is Chris Arndt, and I am Senior Director of Tax Planning for Xcel Energy. Xcel Energy supports House File 1746, and we'd like to thank Representative Agbaje for her work on it. I agree with the comments just provided by CenterPoint that this bill is needed to provide helpful relief for our customers. Like other utilities, Xcel Energy incurred extraordinary natural gas costs during a brief period in February of 2021. The sales tax in these costs is about $8 per customer, and while this may not be significant, it is still an important thing to get right. Therefore, we are working with the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission to seek clarification in the law on behalf of our customers, and we ask for your support. Thank you for your time and for your support for this bill.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Arndt. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on this? Seeing none, we'll move to member discussion. Anyone have? All right, Representative Joy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. This is a good bill. Sit on the PUC board myself. I understand what happened with that polar vortex. Fortunately, the city I live in, we locked our gas until 2028, so we didn't have to experience the down. But I heard City of Austin, different areas that did, and I think this is a good bill to take that off. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, Representative Agbaje.
Thank you, members of the committee. Look forward to supporting and talking more as it goes into the omnibus bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. With that, Representative Agbaje is going to renew her motion that House File 1746 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over. Next up is House File 2256. Representative Davids, welcome to your committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I'd like to move House File 2256.
Excellent. Representative Davids has moved that House File 2256 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill. Representative Davids, to your bill.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a couple testifiers. If they could come forward. Members, what this bill does, it provides some needed fixes to the pass-through entity legislation that was passed a couple of years ago. And I really would like to thank former Chair Marquardt for including the Davids bill in one of his tax bills because this was so wildly successful that we were able to draw down tens of millions, and maybe we could get somebody to have an estimate for us of federal dollars to the state costing us nothing. The state made out like bandits on this, and we received boatloads of federal funds. And we would like to move forward with this bill to basically expand it to more entities so that we can continue to receive these federal tax dollars. So maybe if I could have Mr. Clayman kind of go through what the bill does and be a little more exciting than he was on Chair Gomez's bill.
All right, Mr. Clayman, we always find your testimony exciting, but if you could jazz it up a little bit, we'd appreciate it. Mr. Clayman.
And Madam Chair, I was just thinking about it might be more exciting to watch paint dry or watch corn grow or something like that. But no, Mr. Clayman, of course, does a great
Cold-blooded.
job.
Okay.
This is a much more exciting subject.
It is indeed. Mr. Clayman.
Madam Chair and members, yeah, well, there's only 2 sections of this bill, so I don't rise to the challenge here. You maybe won't have as long to kind of sit through the walkthrough. So the pass-through entity tax, it essentially just allows pass-through business owners to avoid the SALT deduction cap that was imposed federally in 2017 as part of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And it does that by allowing the income tax that the state would impose on that business income from a partnership to be deducted at the entity level, and that then allows those business owners to avoid the $10,000 federal SALT deduction cap under the itemized deduction rules that were changed by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. So Section 1, it does a few things. The bulk of the bill is in Section 1. The first thing it does, it allows 100% of resident pass-through owners' income to be essentially allocated to the state as opposed to an apportioned income. It also clarifies that a qualifying entity that's a single-member LLC, or that an LLC is only a qualifying entity if it's taxed as a partnership or S corp. So those LLCs can make elections to be taxed in a variety of different ways. Also clarifies that a qualifying entity has to have one qualifying owner. And there's also another disregarded entity provision there that also states that a disregarded entity can be a qualifying owner. This also allows the tiered pass-through entities to qualify for the credit. Currently, tiered pass-through entities, these would be partnerships that have another partnership or corporation as a partner. They currently don't qualify to elect to file and pay the credit. And so House File 2256 would allow that. Also makes a number of other more administrative provision changes. So for instance, regarding the election requirement, any owner that's not a qualifying owner would have to be excluded for purposes of applying the election requirement. And there are some also changes to how that election would proceed. Also removes the requirement that the election has to be made by a qualifying owner that's subject to the SALT deduction cap, and then also would impose a sunset on this, which essentially would say that if the federal SALT cap is sunsetted, or when that sunsets federally, that then the PTE tax at the state level would also sunset. And that's Section 1 of the bill, and then Section 2 is just a provision relating to how a partnership that's been subject to a partnership level audit, what are the modifications they have to make to their pass-through entity tax return if that partnership has been subject to a partnership level audit federally. And Madam Chair and members, that concludes the walkthrough of the bill.
See, Madam Chair, much more exciting. Much more.
That was great.
Yes.
That was great. We love it.
I have a gentleman who would like to testify, and then I believe Mr. Reynolds from the NFIB would like to testify.
Great. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and go ahead with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Todd Koch. I'm a tax partner with the firm John A. Knutson and Company, a local firm here in Falcon Heights. I'm also a member of the Minnesota CPA Society. I appreciate you to take on such an exciting topic at this time, because I'm just coming off what I call PTE season, because we had to figure out monies due with people's S corporation and partnership returns that were only due yesterday. So I appreciate you allowing me to talk today. What we're trying to do here is just clarify a few things, some I call unintended consequences of the original bill. And it was nice that revenue and the legislature were able to get together, because this is the language that was in the committee, the bill that was made it to conference committee last year, and so hopefully it can be used here again. PTE is really important because without it, what happened is Minnesota small business owners had a tax increase under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act because of the limitation on deducting interest, deducting their income taxes. It should be that Main Street businesses are treated similar to Wall Street businesses. Why shouldn't Main Street businesses be able to deduct their taxes similar to Wall Street businesses? That's what we're asking for. The clarification makes it so we don't have to figure out making elections on a flow-through entity return before the individual return is done, and we need information from the individual return to tie that back. It's nice that is there. It's nice that you're looking at this tiered structure. This tiered structure sounds, it can be complex, but this is something we have quite common in our businesses is you'll have 90% of the business will be owned by people like you and me. And then 10% will be owned by a partnership. Well, because I have that 10% in a partnership, the other 90% don't get to use this. And the funny thing is the 10% gets to when you follow the train down the road. So it's just saying, let's just treat that the majority owners are fair. If the majority of the people that would have to go through as people, it makes sense that they should be allowed to do that. And it's nice that revenue was able to agree that we could do that. So, and PTE is something that really, if you look at, it's really caught on because there's only 7 states that have individual income taxes that don't either have a PTE provision or have a PTE proposal. So it's really important. And as we're saying, some of the things where people are talking about revenue notes, this is one of the very few things that I can recall. I've been doing this for over 40 years, where you can give assistance to small business owners without it costing revenue a dime. Now, there is a potential, as noted in the revenue notes, there is a potential that it could cost the state a dime. We do over 1,000 individual income tax returns. I have not found one person that has costed a dime where their taxes have dropped, their Minnesota taxes have changed as a result of it. I have talked to my colleagues. I have not found anybody that that would have a Minnesota income tax overall difference. Doesn't mean it can't mathematically happen, and there might be somebody, but the fiscal note would be pretty small. The one thing I do want to clarify is that in the revenue analysis detail in the second bullet point, it says it accurately, but I just like to make it clearer. It says the bill will increase the tax and credit for resident owners. Well, actually, it's increasing the PTE tax collected, and it's increasing the PTE credit. The net impact on the actual individual is nil. So no one's tax is going up or down. If someone thought their tax was going up, they could choose not to do it. That's okay. you could choose. What's happening is our multi-state businesses, if I have 40% of my income, I'm a Minnesota resident, I have to pay tax on 100% of my income to Minnesota because I'm a Minnesota resident. That's the way it works. Well, I'm only paying PTE on 40% of my revenue because on the apportion basis. So what we're just saying is if I'm taxed on 100% of my income in Minnesota, it makes sense that I should be able to pay in a PTE tax on 100% of our income. That's really what it means in English. And I appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next up, John Reynolds. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair Gomez and members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is John Reynolds. I'm the State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business. NFIB represents 10,000 small businesses across the state. NFIB supported the creation of the original pass-through entity tax, and we really appreciate Representative Davids and the committee hearing this important clarification that will enable more small businesses to maximize their federal deduction. As Mr. Koch alluded to, most businesses in the state are very small. 85% have fewer than 20 employees, and that's the case also for entities we would that are pass-through entities, businesses that are pass-through entities. The share of pass-through entities with 20 employees or fewer ranges from 79% to 96%. So generally very small businesses we're talking about here. So even though it's Representative David's bill, I hope you can support it.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Reynolds. All right. That concludes the testifiers I have signed up. Anyone else want to get in on this?
Not after that mic drop.
Seeing none, we'll move to member questions. I actually have a quick question. I don't know if it's for you, Representative Davids, or for Mr. Clayman. I'm just wondering if so because these pass-through entities are like business taxes, but they're paid on an individual's income tax. I'm wondering if the federal SALT deduction cap is one of those provisions of the TCJA that's set to expire along with the individual provisions, or if it's like in place forever with the business provisions. Representative Davids.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Clayman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the way it's written, if the SALT expires, this expires.
Yes, I saw that. I appreciate that. Do you know if it is going to sunset federally?
I believe, Madam Chair, it's 2026.
Mr.
Clayman?
Yep. So, Madam Chair and members, yes, it is set to expire federally, and the expiration would be effective beginning in 2026.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clayman. Representative
Madam Chair,
Davids.
if it expires, then we don't need this. But we really do now. And again, for the record, I want to thank former tax chair Marquardt for taking my bill and putting it in place, because this has been a windfall for Minnesota.
Excellent. Noted, Representative Davids. Does anyone else have a comment or question? Not seeing any. Any closing comments for us, Representative Davids?
Yes, I hope this can be included in the omnibus tax bill. And I was going to thank both my testifiers, but I think I'll just thank one. No, I do thank my testifiers, and I thank Mr. Clayman for his watching this bill go through up to this point.
Excellent. And with that, Representative Davids is going to renew his motion that House File 2256 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and it is laid over. Next up, House File 2730, Representative Anderson. We should have let you go first because these treats are amazing and they're presented beautifully, which is not always, something that we do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please finish them, too.
We'll do our best.
This should be fairly quick. Thank you. I'm pleased to present House File 2730. This is really almost a technical bill, bipartisan. I want to thank the chair and vice chair for signing on. It's the same in the Senate. There's a newspaper article in here that, if you recall, it's from the Trib from a couple of years ago. You might remember this. It was a group of high school students that were denied unemployment during the pandemic. They lost their jobs during the shutdown in March of 2020. They ultimately joined with a lot of other high school kids that were in a similar situation and ended up in a group called Youth Prize. So there's good things that came out of this, actually. They sued, they were at the time determined that they weren't eligible for unemployment because they're in high school. They, as a group, Youth Prize, sued Deed. Deed lost the lawsuit, was happy that they lost the lawsuit, and paid out the unemployment benefits in January of '21. The legislature has previously passed legislation that unemployment benefits from the pandemic or the first $10,000 were non-tax free, but that was for 2020, and of course these are 2021 benefits. So this sort of just came through the cracks. I've asked Joanna Bears, Legislative Director at Revenue, to maybe explain. We did get a fiscal note, but there's question about whether this is catching everyone and why it may not be. So,
welcome to the committee, Ms. Bears.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Joanna Bears. I'm the Legislative Director for the Minnesota Department of Revenue. So as you know, on the revenue estimate, there's about 90 people, and those 90 folks are folks that in 2021 filed unemployment compensation and were considered minors at the time. And we don't have the information for 2020 because when the law changed after the lawsuit or the court case was happened and the law changed, Deed changed their unemployment system. And so those folks, those minors, ended up going in with the general population of other UI claimants. And so they don't actually know those folks that would have been qualified. But the estimate does indicate that, it's probably around 90. It could be those folks, or it could be others that maybe weren't required to file that did receive some unemployment compensation as well. If this bill does move forward, we're happy to do as much outreach as we can to make sure those people are able to amend those returns to get the benefit.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Bears. I forgot the most important part. Representative Anderson, would you like to move that House File 2730 be laid over for possible inclusion?
Thank you. So moved.
Excellent. All right. With that, we're going to go to member discussion. Representative Norris.
Thank you, Chair Gomez, and thank you, Representative Anderson, for bringing this bill and for bringing this article. It's actually me in the upper right-hand corner there, the tiny little picture. So I'll spare regaling you for tales from days of yore in this fight, but it was a real privilege of mine to be able to work alongside these fantastic young people, and they got a raw deal at almost every single turn. I mean, they initially were denied benefits. I think some of the most egregious stories were the ones who initially were approved for benefits, were paid the benefits, then were told after they had spent the benefits that they needed to pay them back, and so then they were in debt to the state. And then when we finally were able to get it resolved, it was too late for them to be able to get the tax exemption. And so a lot of these young people, they were working because they were having to support their families. So then having to counsel them to set aside some of those benefits that they had been waiting months for to make sure that they could pay the tax bill on those benefits was just another real tough turn of events for them. So I'm grateful to you for bringing this bill forward. I'm grateful to Ms. Bears and her offer to work with us on doing some outreach to try to catch as many of these young people as possible so that they can get a refund, and I'm sure they'll be thrilled to hear that they're going to be able to get some of those benefits back that they had to pay in taxes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Representative Norris, and for all of your work on this and other issues with these young people over many years. Is there any further discussion on the bill? All right, seeing none. Representative Anderson, any final comments for us?
I have none. I just want to thank the committee, and I hope we can get this in the omnibus bill. So thank you.
Great. And with that, Representative Anderson is going to renew her motion that House File 2730 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus tax bill, and the bill is laid over. All right, members, that's the end of our agenda for today. Just a reminder, we will be meeting tomorrow, 1 p.m. We'll see everybody then. With that, the committee is adjourned.